Hello everyone, this is Insane College Football, and it certainly has been an insane week one, so let's talk about it. First things first, if you would like to see more great college football content, consider a like and a subscription. It really helps the channel out, and it helps you see more of the college football content you want to see. But first, our reaction takes us to Lubbock, Texas, where Texas Tech beat not TCU, not Baylor, they beat Abilene Christian 52-51 in overtime. I look at this game and I say, what the hell is going on with you, Texas Tech? Your head coach is Joey McGuire, who's supposed to be a defensive mind, and you're giving up 9.9 yards per pass. That is putrid. That is putrid against a good team. And this is against Abilene Christian, who is a lower division team that you should absolutely take care of. And Joey McGuire is supposed to be a defensive coach, and you're letting this happen to you. Lot of issues there, and I am really worried about Texas Tech's season after this. You have to consider, when you hire a motivator coach like Joey McGuire is, that's not necessarily a scheme guy, he's going to recruit very well, but when you hire a coach like that, that's not as necessarily savvy on the operational and scheme sort of aspects of being a head coach, you're taking a huge risk, and hires like that almost never work out. But what usually happens is in the first couple of years, a coach like that, especially knowing Joey McGuire came from the high school ranks, and he's never been a head coach or a coordinator at this level of football, when you hire a coach like that, yeah, they usually overachieve their first year, maybe their first couple of years. And then what happens is things start to slowly decline and decline and decline until you see what we saw yesterday. They didn't lose the game. They probably deserved to. I mean, they were, outpassed on a per-play basis. And that should not happen against Abilene Christian if you're Texas Tech. I'm not saying you got to fire Joey McGuire, but if things don't improve on the pass defense, you got a real problem, because that's supposed to be your coach's specialty. But we've seen these motivator-type coaches. We've seen them get hired like Shane Beamer, like Sam Pittman, and this is what can happen. Almost all of them bottom out eventually, and I think that's happening with those coaches. We might see the signs now of that happening to Joey McGuire. Deshaun Foster is another guy. I think that maybe it won't happen this year, but at some point, maybe either this year or next year, they're going to overachieve relative to what you think they should do. And then what's going to happen is everyone's going to love that coach and get behind him because, hey, he's an underdog, and, you doubted him and all this stuff. And, he's well liked by the players. I mean, Beamer and Pittman were like that as well. What happens with coaches like that is eventually their lack of ability to sustain an operation for a prolonged period of time, or their lack of experience doing that at this level, is really going to bite them in the ass. And I think it's biting Joey McGuire in the ass right now. You should not be struggling with Abilene Christian. In Georgia's last 3 neutral site season openers, their opponents have scored exactly 3 points each. Clemson deserves better. And I'm not saying that that's like a fire Dabo thing or anything like that, but you can clearly see when a coach knows he wants to do things a certain way, and that certain way catches up to him, and it's caught up to Dabo Swinney. Dabo Swinney, for all the talk about he doesn't use the portal, doesn't take transfers, that's one thing. Georgia actually won a national championship in a year where they didn't take any transfers, so it's not like you necessarily have to do it. But if you're at a roster deficiency level to any team, and Georgia, I mean, there's only maybe 1 or 2 rosters you could even say that about, if any. But if you're not in that Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State echelon of talent, which Clemson's a very talented team, they're a top 5 talented team, but they're still a ways behind them in terms of the way that they recruit. And if you don't get high school players like that and keep them, this is going to happen when you play those teams. And, quarterback play, that's one thing. People were saying that when Dabo didn't bench DJ, and when they wanted Cade to come in, that he was being too loyal to DJ. He was too loyal to his previous staff when his coordinators moved on, Venables and Elliott. When those guys moved on, people thought he was too loyal to his original staff and just promoted guys from within, and that he should have done a national hire. Well, he did a national hire at offensive coordinator, and he got Garrett Riley. I don't know how much ownership Garrett Riley has of this team. I don't know how much ownership he has over Cade's development. But Cade Klubnik looked scared, and he has really in just about every non-home game that they've played. Even against teams where that shouldn't happen. Clemson plays Appalachian State next week, and I don't know that they're going to win that game. Appalachian State is not one of those group of fives that's just going to lay down. We saw what they did to Texas A&M a few years ago. We saw what they did to Michigan in 2007. I'm worried for Dabo if he doesn't change things, and I don't really expect him to do so. He's going to win his way, and he's going to lose his way. And we saw him lose his way yesterday. Time will tell if that has an effect on their season. You've got to play some teams now. This isn't like the ACC of the past where everybody's just going to lay down and get destroyed by Clemson, because Clemson, number one, doesn't have the caliber of team to do that. But number two, there's some all-right teams in the ACC this year. Even though I know the ACC hasn't looked bad through 1 week, but there's still teams capable of beating Clemson on their schedule, even teams that we might think of as bad, which, he's dug his own grave, I think. I don't think they'll ever get to national prominence again at Clemson as long as Dabo Swinney is there, which, if you had said that in 2018, 2019, you'd have been crazy to say that. But it ended up being the truth, because we've only seen his teams regress since then. As for Georgia, we knew what Georgia was going to be. We knew Georgia was going to be the best team in the country or close to it, and that's what they looked like. They looked more like it in the second half than the first, but still, Carson Beck's one of the best quarterbacks in the country, and it gets largely unnoticed because the team around him is so talented that you just take for granted that the other guys are talented and any quarterback could come in there and do what Beck is doing. No, he's doing things, and he's a special quarterback, and I knew it when I saw him not get rattled at Auburn last year, because I was present at that game, and I saw Carson Beck just make throws, do what he was supposed to do, come back after interceptions and fumbles, and Auburn was in that game, but Georgia got it back into it largely because of not only Bowers, but Beck himself. I don't know that necessarily their lack of skill, talent, experience is really going to help them. When they've got to play Alabama and they've got to play Texas and teams that can stretch them vertically, that's a big question mark if they're going to be able to stay in a matchup like that, or if their defense is going to be able to defend it. That's why the games are played, obviously. So we will find out. Penn State won after a weather delay at West Virginia, and they looked how I expected them to look. I thought they were more explosive. I thought Kotelnicki, he's already paying dividends for them. They would not have won like this last year. They dominated West Virginia in the opener last year as well, but what they didn't do was, number one, look as good passing the ball, and number two, look as good as far as explosive plays. Penn State is an explosive play team. Now, they're a team that's capable of having them, and that's not something we could say last year. It's why they lost the Ohio State and Michigan games, and to a large part, it's why they lost the Ole Miss game. So, you see what Penn State is doing now. They're going to be a really good team. I think they're going to be a playoff team, just due to the schedule that they play. They're better than a lot of the teams on their schedule besides Ohio State. And I'm really intrigued by their matchup with USC because, as we'll talk about later, USC is a pretty damn good team now. So that's what I thought about Penn State. And as for West Virginia, I expected them to lose. I didn't expect them to lose that bad. But I still think they're going to win some games in the Big 12. This is probably the part of the video that you guys all wanted to see because it's the biggest talking point in all of college football. What happened in Gainesville? Well, Miami won 41-17. That's what happened in Gainesville. Miami's a good team, and whoever lost this game was obviously going to be treated as bad, but I don't think that you guys are really appreciating the coaching job, and I can't believe I'm saying that. The coaching job that Mario Cristobal has done, recruiting a team to just be as dominant on the line of scrimmage as they were, they're going to do that to a lot of people. They were very dominant on the line of scrimmage yesterday, and that's how Mario Cristobal builds his team, so it makes sense. But you didn't see any panic, especially out of Cam Ward, which was the big, talking point going into the game was, how is he going to handle the environment? He handled it just fine. The whole team did. Even after, you make a mistake and throw an interception early, I mean, he wasn't really rattled by the environment, and that's an environment that can rattle some very good quarterbacks. So, hats off to Miami. They did a very good job. But Florida is obviously what everyone's talking about, because Billy Napier is most likely done. And, I've tried to, be confident in Billy Napier because I don't think he's a bad coach. But you've got to give the Florida fan base something at some point. Florida's not a fan base that's just going to sit by and wait 3 years, because frankly, they shouldn't have to. Florida's a program that should be winning more than it has been in the last few years. And I know some Florida fans, I've heard some Florida fans say, we shouldn't have fired Mullen. No. Maybe what the answer to that is you shouldn't have hired Billy Napier. Because Billy Napier, while he's done what he needs to do operationally from a hiring standpoint, did not hire good defensive assistants. And Ron Roberts, I wasn't a big fan of either. I mean, as an Auburn fan, you can understand why. And then, offensively, calling the plays, I wasn't impressed. And part of that is to do with, the offensive line. I don't really know if the offensive line is just bad or if Miami's defensive line is that good. Probably a mix of both. But, you used up all the equity you had. Florida fans are not going to take a home blowout loss to a rival in year 3. They're just not. And we've seen coaches win with less in less time, even having to play tough schedules. So there's not a lot of excuses you can really give to Billy Napier for how that happened. Competitive loss, sure. You go on to the next few games, see if you can win them, whatever. And, credit to Billy Napier if he gets it turned around, but I don't see that happening. That Texas A&M game is going to be so important. As we saw with them playing Notre Dame, they're not as good as we thought they were, and this might be a bigger rebuild than I thought as far as Texas A&M goes. So Texas A&M is mortal, especially playing them at home. You've got to get that game, and then you've got to get probably a lot of games like the Miami game where you're outmatched talent-wise. That's just the schedule that Florida plays this year. And it's backloaded, but even in the front, there's not a lot of teams that are just going to lie down, especially to a team of Florida's caliber. Oregon was in a dogfight with Idaho. 24-14 was the final score. Did not expect myself to be saying that sentence today, but here it is. And when you really look back at the game, you see that the game itself wasn't actually indicative of the final score. Oregon was moving the ball. Now, yes, they took a lot of pass attempts to do it. You could see that it was a lot of self-inflicted stuff on Oregon's part, and I don't know that it was really anything Idaho did to make the game so difficult for them. And I think if they needed a drive or they needed a stop, I think they could have got it near the end. I don't think it was ever going to be in doubt. I never really felt watching the game like Idaho was really a threat to win it, even though the score may have seemed that way. And I think if this game is played 100 times, even with the statistical profile that it had, I don't think Oregon scores just 24 points. I mean, when you've got almost 500 yards and a 31-10 first down edge, like 24 points and like nearly 50%, third down completion percentage or third down conversion percentage. Like, to me, when you have those stats all together, and really the only stat where they didn't dominate Idaho was penalties, to me that's like, a 1 in a million result just with those stats. Notre Dame did what a lot of people didn't expect them to do, and not only beat Texas A&M, but beat them convincingly. This Texas A&M's offense is a huge work in progress. Wegman, not impressive. And he was highly rated out of high school, and now we can kind of put to rest the idea that it was just Jimbo that was holding him back and he's actually really good. Like, two things can be true at once. Jimbo can be a bad offensive mind, and also Wegman can be not what he was billed as coming out of high school. I think both of those things have now proven true. Even when Notre Dame wasn't getting pressure, you saw Wegman act nervous, and he's not the road quarterback. Riley Leonard went into a hostile environment and was the more composed quarterback. And you can't really blame it on Wegman's youth. He's a junior now. Like, this kind of thing shouldn't be happening to a third-year player. I don't know that it's Texas A&M's offensive line being bad, because even as Elko said in the press conference earlier today, he said, even when Wegman had a clean pocket, he threw it and his feet looked like he didn't have a clean pocket. So I don't know how much of that is correctable or just how much of that is who Wegman is. But, hats off to Notre Dame, because they had a very young offensive line, true freshman center playing in a hostile environment in his first game, a very loud hostile environment. That is not easy to do the way that they did it. And that Notre Dame defense played really good, and they're going to be a force to be reckoned with, and the schedule is easy for them, so they don't really play like a threat to win until USC. So Notre Dame's probably a playoff lock. So hats off to Marcus Freeman. He's done an incredible coaching job with that team, and when Brian Kelly left, Notre Dame fans were pissed about the way he left, but really I think both teams are better off for it. Speaking of both teams being better off for it, the final game I have to talk about is USC versus LSU. LSU, even in a loss, showed some things that were really good. Defense, just from a tackling, from a coverage standpoint, they played a lot better than they did last year. And it's kind of hard not to with how bad last year was. Ditto for USC, but I think SC probably improved their defense more. Danton Lynn, man, what an assistant hire. He's transformed that defense. I don't know what Alex Grinch was doing, but it's clear that they have a mindset about just tackling and fundamentals that the Grinch's defenses didn't have. So, very good on both of those. And then the quarterbacks. You lose two Heisman quarterbacks on either side, and Miller Moss was the better quarterback in this game, but damn if Nussmeier wasn't also good. And, they had moments at the end where LSU kind of just collapsed and let him score, and Brian Kelly was talking about that in the presser, and I know he got, a lot of flack for that, just for the way he acted in the presser, but to me, I've seen him turn teams around before after an opening season loss. He's done it twice at LSU already, won 10 games in both of his first two seasons, so I think they'll get it right, and I think by SEC play you'll see LSU be a different team, but you also just have to just consider, LSU also played a really good team, and that was two really good teams. I don't think it's a situation where the team that won was the good team and the team that lost was bad. No. This was like watching a playoff matchup in the opening game, and it sounds silly to say that, and I'm sure I'm going to be getting made fun of for saying that, because it's kind of fun to crap on LSU because they lost, but I liked what I saw out of both of these teams. So before we go, I am going to do this every week, and I'm going to give my personal top 25, merit-based, based on what we've seen these teams do. So I don't look at the AP poll before this. I don't even think it's been released. So this is my opinion. I don't really look at what anyone else says. This isn't a win and you stay in the same spot type of deal, and lose, you move down. No, it's not anything like that. Just evaluating where the teams are week by week. So you could win and you go down, you could lose and go up, depending on the situation. That latter is less likely to happen than the former, but whatever. Number 1, I have Georgia. Number 2 is Texas. Number 3 is Alabama. Number 4 is Ohio State. Number 5 is Oregon. Number 6 is Ole Miss. Number 7 is Notre Dame. Number 8 is Penn State. Number 9 is Utah. Number 10 is Miami. Number 11 is USC. Number 12 is Oklahoma, although I do have some concerns for them offensively. Number 13 is Oklahoma State. Number 14 is Kansas State. Number 15 is Iowa. Number 16 is Nebraska. Number 17 is Louisville. Number 18 is Georgia Tech. Number 19 is UCF. Number 20 is Kentucky. Number 21 is Washington. Number 22 is Auburn. Number 23 is Missouri. That might be controversial, but I want to see them play an actual team before I reserve judgment. Number 24 is Michigan. Didn't look good against Fresno State, but we'll see how they look against Texas. Number 25 is LSU. So, thanks for watching, guys. If you have any requests of what you want me to talk about in the college football world, leave them in the comments below. A like and a subscription always helps the channel out. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.